Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen. As always, before we dive into the AEW Forbidden Door prediction show, follow me on Twitter at Juicy Steen. Follow me on Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet. Subscribe on YouTube at Juicy Steen. You can listen to this show on Amazon Music, juicysteen.podbean.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, as I mentioned, YouTube at Juicy Steen. If you listen to it on Spotify or on iTunes, if you can leave a rating and review, that would really help the show. 5 stars, drop a little 1-minute review of the show as well, that'd be cool. But yeah, here we are, AEW Forbidden Door. It feels like just yesterday we were doing the Double or Nothing prediction show. But man, we are already here. Next week, we of course have the Money in the Bank predictions. Should be with Josh Eisenberg. We shall see if all that lines up. It shall be a wonderful, wonderful week of pro wrestling this week and next week, as we are blazing through summer with SummerSlam and Wembley on the horizon. With that being said, touch on a couple of things before we dive in. Absolutely loved the most recent Who Killed WCW episode on Vice. Yours truly, along with Andrew Baydala, Blake Mitchamore, and Corey over on Final Bell Media, discussed the final episode in great detail over on Final Bell Media there on YouTube. It was, as I stated throughout the weeks, it was a very depressing series as a huge WCW fan, because you knew where it was ending, of course, but everybody's just blaming this person, blaming that person, a lot of just he said, she said, and I mean, in the end, it's frustrating that a deal could not be made with somebody other than WWE, but it is what it is. We never got the Hard Rock Cafe Las Vegas residency for WCW. We never got the potential May 6th, 2001 Big Bang pay-per-view that was heavily rumored. There was an advertisement made for it. And all we're left with is great memories, great matches and episodes of Nitro, Thunder, Saturday Night, and the pay-per-views on Peacock. And yours truly is left with a plethora of pay-per-view shirts from WCW's historic run from 1990 to 2001, which you can find at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram, if you so desire. But let's get into it here. We've got quite a bit of wrestling here on this card, which, some people will say is a detriment. However, AEW on pay-per-view always seems to elevate to a level that, I'm very appreciative of. No matter how their TV goes, their pay-per-views seem to just always land with quite the majority of their fan base, including myself. This past week on Dynamite didn't do much outside of MJF opening the show. Daniel Garcia interrupts him, and MJF, Daniel Garcia, kind of discuss a match at Wembley at All In. However, Will Ospreay arrives. He offers Daniel Garcia a world title match next week if he were to defeat Swerve Strickland in the main event. I will discuss that later. But before that, he also, before he leaves, Ospreay looks at MJF, and it seems that MJF was pissed that he was upstaged by Bruv, and the match he definitely seemed to put forth out there to Daniel Garcia seemingly is now null and void. I don't know how I feel about wrestlers fighting over wrestlers that haven't had a lot of TV time, nor am I really sure how I feel about a wrestler who hasn't won the world title yet promising a world title opportunity to a guy that, for all intents and purposes, has not earned a shot at the world title yet, when everything could be null and void if the one guy who says he's going to be world champion ends up not winning the world title. So, it was an interesting segment to start for sure, but I felt by the end it got a little muddied with I'm going to have you challenge, and this is going to happen if I'm champion, but it's not really if I'm champion, it's when I'm champion because I'm confident. And I do want to dive in a little bit to I want to bring this up. I reference on this show quite a bit that Wrestling Nation, the group chat that I am involved in with quite a few Juicebox guests that I've had on, with more to come. But I do want to say Triple Threat Theater's mainstay, Donnie, does say this, and I quote, and I'm sure Donnie wouldn't mind me throwing this out there. I tried to watch AEW last night and fell asleep. It's unwatchable. Why are two of your biggest names in the company trying to one-up each other to wrestle Daniel blanking Garcia, who apparently has been racking up win after win, but I wouldn't know because it's happening on shows nobody watches. It makes zero blanking sense. Forbidden Door might as well be called Forgotten Door, because other than Swerve and Ospreay, we've forgotten to build for anything else. It's just a pay-per-view driven off of name value alone. Now, I hope Donnie doesn't mind that I aired his early Festivus grievance here in July, or June, late June. June! But I can't help but to see, some similarities with that in a lot of fans that do watch AEW, where Forbidden Door, in my estimation, should have been done 2 years ago. Like when it first happened, it should have been the big, Forbidden Door, here we go, and that's it. I don't think it should have been run back last year. I'm not sure it should have been run back this year. I think we're at a point now where, and it's due to AEW taking talent from New Japan, featuring them quite often, as is. It makes matches, quote-unquote, AEW versus New Japan, a little less than, when some of these guys and girls have been featured on the programming throughout the year, regardless of the Forbidden Door. And outside of a few matches, this card seems pretty obvious, cut and dry, with who's going to win, who's going to lose, based on the stakes, and that some of these wrestlers you will not see on AEW TV for the rest of the year, maybe until next year's Forbidden Door, if they have it. Again, this is not to say that I'm not going to enjoy this pay-per-view. I very much believe that this pay-per-view will be great. I always put my money where my mouth is with AEW pay-per-views, and this will be no different. But it's just tough for me to look at this card, and I really think the novelty would be better if it was every other year or every 3 or 4 or even 5 years away for Forbidden Door. Put something else in this June slot. It just is too much of a muddied card with talent that not everybody knows, and the fans are supposed to truly be invested in what happens in a match where you could take a really basic guess and say, well, MJF's going to win. Like, MJF's not going to lose his match. I will get to all that, but MJF's not going to lose his match. Bryan Danielson's not going to lose his match. You know? Some of the matches on here are just too obvious based on lack of story, lack of build, a plethora of reasons. But again, I'm not going to come on here and just take a dump on AEW. I like the Forbidden Door concept. I just don't know if every year is the best way to present this type of show. It's just because they're already using some of these guys and girls all the time. Or if, like, Okada is now in AEW. He was a main draw of New Japan. That was a reason Forbidden Door was great. But now he's just a part of the show. Forbidden Door is just kind of an open door policy now. Everybody's on AEW's roster. So, I really don't want to make it seem like I'm hating on this. It's just tough to look at this as, wow, what a great card again. AEW's pushing forward without thinking, well, some of these matches we probably have seen before. We'll probably see them again. And not just we'll probably see them again. It'll probably be with less stakes. Probably just be on TV. It won't have the cachet as, say, again, the first Forbidden Door. You had Okada. You had these guys. It was different. I do want to note in here that I believe, I'm not sure. Is this match happening? Okay, so we've got the Owen Hart tournament, and as of right now, we've got a couple of slots filled for each week. I want to make sure. I believe Jeff Jarrett and his AEW, his Owen Hart match, I want to say is next week. But something interesting that was noted on Dynamite. Jeff Jarrett is going to face the wild card entrant, and the wild card could be anybody, but the Elite specifically, the Young Bucks said that they are choosing who the wild card entrant is. Could it be Hangman Adam Page? Could it be Sammy Guevara? Could it be Shane McMahon? Could it be Donovan Dijak? A lot of rumor innuendo the last couple of weeks. Shane McMahon, could he show up in AEW? He's talked to guys. He's not talked to guys. We all know this rigmarole. Dijak, his last day with WWE is today. And I'm not sure how the no compete clause works, anymore. I know that the 90-day thing, I know there's a ruling for that. I'm not sure where that stands currently right now. As I look Yeah, I just don't know. But Dijak wrote yesterday, the 27th, that WWE never negotiated with him. They attempted to negotiate, and they stonewalled us, never made him a single offer. And then they informed him that they would not be renewing his contract at the 11th hour. So, AEW, I believe, could use a guy like Dijak, quite frankly, in the main event scene. I think he could start underneath, going up against, hey, could we get Keith Lee Dijak again? Going up against a Lance Archer, a Brian Cage. Could we see something like that? Could we see Samoa Joe versus Dijak? Could we see Dijak versus Jon Moxley? Dijak, Will Ospreay. So Dijak is a guy that could be in play. I think Shane McMahon's more of a facetious answer. Sammy Guevara, absolutely. He's been out for a bit. Could it be his time? Or does Hangman Adam Page become unsuspended, reinstated, and back into the fold as a wild card for the Elite, even though, of course, that would be used to turn and not actually be with the Elite and help himself get to the final? Because we all know that the final of this tournament, the winner of this tournament, will get a World Championship match at All In, Wembley Stadium, August 25th, 2024. So, with that being set like that, to me, right out the gate, to me, it looks like Hangman gets in the tournament. Hangman wins the Owen Hart. Swerve retains. Swerve holds to All In. You get Swerve versus Hangman at Wembley. But I have a tough time thinking that Will Ospreay won't win this tournament. Or not the tournament, but win the world title. And we'll get there. Let's get back to it. Let's get to the whole show. Forbidden Door. This Sunday. It's the third Forbidden Door event. This time taking place Long Island at the UBS Arena, where we get to see Stardom competitors, CMLL competitors, and of course New Japan and AEW competitors. Friend of the show, Andrew Baydala, will be in attendance. Sure, he's going to see a lot of great wrestling in Long Island, on Long Island, in Long Island, however you want to phrase it. But I'm not there, so I'll say whatever I want. 3 undercard matches. A tag team match between Chris Statlander and Momo Watanabe versus Willow Nightingale and Tam Nakano. I honestly don't know much about Nakano or Watanabe. I have a feeling Willow will win for her team. The Owen Hart first round match for the women, which takes place on 0 Hour. Saraya versus Mariah May. I have a feeling Mariah May will win this match. And then we have Los Ingobernables de Japón, Yodatsuchi Titan and Hiromu Takahashi versus Lucha Bros and Mystico. Trios match, I'm sure it'll be insane. I am taking the Lucha Bros and Mystico. But let's get to the meat and potatoes. We have, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 matches on the main broadcast. Hopefully there's no more, although Chris Jericho seemingly will be in some sort of bout, you would have to assume. Minoru Suzuki said he would love to face Jericho instead of team with him, and that's where we stand. Who knows what's actually going to happen. But let's get into this. As much as I've been critical of some of the matches being too obvious of who's going to win based on the combatants, I will say there are quite a few matches on this card that actually do benefit the actual AEW week to week, and I am stoked for those matches specifically. And I think it's nice, though, even with the New Japan integration, that we do get a baseline of AEW matches with storylines and titles on the line that actually are going to move forth in their main story. Let's start off with so here's what we'll go by what is on Wikipedia as of press time. So who knows what happens on Collision if anything changes. But right now, the learning tree, which will be Chris Jericho, Big Bill, and evidently Jeff Cobb. So that's where we're looking at right now. Versus Samoa Joe. It was supposed to be Brian Keith. Versus Joe, Hook, and Shibata. Where Shibata did present one of the best renditions of a SpongeBob meme via his translator on his phone. Oh, brother, this guy stinks! I have a feeling that Joe, Hook, and Shibata get the win here. Maybe Cobb takes the pin. But the learning tree will not get a win, and I'm sure will still get TV time next week on Dynamite. I'm half and half on the learning tree. Big Bill is great. I can't believe I'm saying that Big Bill, with promo work, he's fantastic. As Jericho, is standing there like a doofus, which is his, gimmick and character right now, which I don't mind. Again, I mind what's the end goal? Are we going to get new guys over because of this? What have you. Big Bill is doing hand motions. He's dancing. He's being just as goofy as Jericho, but Big Bill is very believable. He's a funnier guy, at least at this stage of their careers, between him and Jericho. But I take Joe, Hook, and Shibata to win this trios match, maybe setting up an FTW title defense down the line. Orange Cassidy versus Zack Sabre Jr. This match, seemingly a little bit of a similarity to last year where we had Daniel Garcia, Shibata, Zack Sabre, and Orange Cassidy in a four-way for the international title. Now we get a one-on-one between Sabre and Orange. No title on the line, of course, because Orange lost his title. But I really think Zack Sabre Jr. is going to pick up the win here. I would not be stunned if Orange Cassidy got a crazy roll-up, but I think Zack Sabre Jr. is one of the best wrestlers overall in the world. I've seen him in PWG, 7-8 years ago, and he's still just as fantastic now. I mean, God, he's only 36. He was voted best technical wrestler from 2014 to 2020 from the Wrestling Observer. I mean, he is one of the best wrestlers just in the world. And I get a feeling he's going to take out Orange Cassidy. Finally, to take a loss on pay-per-view. But I think it'll be a solid match, as all Orange Cassidy matches tend to be. We got Mercedes Moné, Stephanie Vacour for not only the AEW TBS title, but the New Japan Strong Women's title. Again, this is now where we get to some muddy territory. I absolutely feel as if there's no chance Moné loses, especially not after just becoming TBS champion. I also think, she'll win the New Japan title. Then she'll probably go to Japan, defend it a little bit. Who knows what the TBS title will look like at that point? I don't know. I just don't see Monet losing, but it's tough for me to see her defend the New Japan Strong Women's title in New Japan. Now, maybe you have someone else come up and challenge. Maybe you get Willow in the fray, and Willow ends up taking the Strong Women's title. And if that were to be the case, she was the one that defeated Mercedes in the inaugural single elimination tournament back in 2023, to where, why not? Why couldn't Willow get a title and go back to New Japan more frequently? So I'm going to still take Mercedes Monet, because you could have Monet and Willow in a rematch. Willow get a win for the New Japan title. You could play it a lot of ways. But give me Monet. Still looking for Britt Baker to come back. Still looking for more from Thunder Rosa. Hikaru Shida. I mean, there's so many women in the division. You got Chris Statlander and Willow, Mariah May, and Saraya on 0 hour. Meanwhile, only 4 women on the main card. So there's more women on the 0 hour part of the show than there are on the main card. Now, of course, the titles are on the line, but I've stated my frustrations with the women's division in the past with AEW and how they're so loaded with talent, but it seems as if they just can't get enough talent on screen weekly, if not monthly at their pay-per-views. Speaking of, timeless Toni Storm versus Mina Shirakawa for the AEW Women's title. Mariah May will be at ringside in support of both women, which should be interesting. I hope maybe Mariah May comes out with half of Toni Storm's gear, or half of a shirt from her, half of a Mina Shirakawa shirt. This past week, of course, a glass bottle of champagne cracked over the head of Mariah May from Mina Shirakawa, and Toni Storm, who ducked out of the way, seemingly, at least to me, referenced Rocco's Modern Life and the one character on that show where Rocco can't get out of the way of a certain woman at the grocery store or at certain people at certain events, and when he gets involved with this woman, the woman picks him up and throws him somewhere and always says, "How dare you?" But that's exactly what Toni Storm was saying after the champagne bottle was broken over Mariah May's head, and that's the first thing I could think of. I don't know, and I honestly doubt that was the reference that they were going for, but nevertheless, that's where I think, and that's where my mind was headed. But I think this is a fascinating match. I've enjoyed the build where Mariah May truly is torn between two of these women that she's friends with here. And I don't doubt that potentially Mina Shirakawa could win this match. But if Mariah May were to win the 0 hour match and, get that Owen Hart Cup tournament first round match under her belt, I'm not saying she's going to win the whole thing, but it would definitely cause a rift where whoever wins the women's title here, that match could seemingly face Mariah May at All In. So that's something that they'd have to parlay as well to definitely cause a rift, an even deeper rift between the three. Although Toni and Mina seemingly don't have a friendship to begin with. Now we're diving a little deeper into more of the AEW portion of the card, primarily because the main talents are AEW, but there's still definitely some New Japan flavor. Of course, we've got MJF versus, and I'm going to do my best here, Hechicero in a singles match. I don't know. This is just an obvious match. MJF's going to win. The interaction with MJF, Daniel Garcia, and Ospreay was fascinating on Dynamite, but to further this match, it didn't. And I really just see MJF winning this pretty solidly. 12 minutes, 14 minutes, something like that. MJF gets the win. I think this is his first match back on pay-per-view. So that'll be nice. Because, of course, last month, he just showed up with the poker chip tattoo. But yeah, give me MJF to win, and we'll see what happens. I don't know if it's Ospreay and MJF that they're looking for Wembley. I don't see why that couldn't be a match, although there's no title on the line. Let's look at it this way. I'm going to say MJF wins this, and we'll get to the following. We've got trios match between The Elite, the Young Bucks, and Kazuchika Okada taking on Scissor Ace, which is an incredible tag team name. The Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens, Max Caster, and Hiroshi Tanahashi, with, of course, Daddy Ass at ringside. Tanahashi, of course, the president and representative director of New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is pretty cool. Taking on, with the Acclaimed, the Elite. So I have a feeling that even though this is kind of a surprise, Tanahashi was a surprise that the Acclaimed weren't really, the Elite thought that it was going to be Billy Gunn, and that it was going to be cut and dry, and that's that. Billy Gunn says he knows people, he knows presidents, and he knew Tanahashi. So Tanahashi gets to definitely have in-ring work with Kazuchika Okada once again, and those two, of course, had some spirited bouts at Wrestle Kingdom events throughout the last 10 years, some of which widely regarded as some of the greatest matches of the modern era. Sorry for the chair squeak. But this is a tough one. The Acclaimed do get a tag title match in the future, so I'm going to say that the Elite get the win over the Acclaimed and Tanahashi, purely to cause that rift to kind of get a 1-to-1, with a deciding match for the actual titles in the future. But I'm looking forward to Tanahashi and Okada in a ring again. I feel, let's see, when was this? Was it 16? Oh, 16 was Okada and Ospreay. I think it was probably, because Okada and Ospreay definitely had some matches before, but I'm going to just do a quick search here. So, there we go. Wrestle Kingdom. Wow. Wrestle Kingdom 7 and Wrestle Kingdom 9 and Wrestle Kingdom 10 all had Okada Tanahashi for the IWGP Heavyweight title. Oddly enough, Wrestle Kingdom 10 I purchased. I bought Wrestle Kingdom 10. It was, of course, arguably one of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my life. Shinsuke Nakamura versus AJ Styles. What a match that was. And, of course, just days later, AJ Styles debuts at the Royal Rumble. Nakamura makes his NXT debut on April 1st of that year. I got to see that in person. So, these, Tanahashi and Okada were really a part of 3 of the biggest Wrestle Kingdom matches, main events rather, in the event's history, the January 4th Tokyo Dome show. So to see them one-on-one, even in a 3-on-3 capacity, will be pretty damn cool to see happen again. But give me the Elite to win. Jon Moxley taking on Naito. IWGP World Title on the line. I don't see Naito winning this. I think Moxley retains his championship here in a very hard-hitting bout. Not sure when he'll eventually lose that title, but I'm curious to see Moxley's spot on the Wembley card, assuming he's going to be on there. So I think at some point Moxley's going to have to lose the title, although if Mox would defend the IWGP World Title on the show at All In, that would be pretty damn cool as well. Who's to say New Japan would allow that? I don't know how that really is going to work, but I think Mox is going to retain here against Naito and retain that IWGP World Title. We've got a couple more matches to go here. Shingo Takagi versus Bryan Danielson, Owen Hart Cup Tournament first round match. I'm going to say Bryan Danielson wins this pretty handily. Now I'm going to go to the brackets right now. Let's look at the women briefly. Right now in the semifinals of the women, we've got Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander. Next week, Dynamite Beach Break. That should be one hell of a bout. And then Hikaru Shida versus either Mariah May or Saraya. Also next week at Dynamite Beach Break. So we'll see who ends up being in the finals of that tournament. But on the other side, if Danielson wins, he will take on Pac next week. Dynamite Beach Break. And Jay White will take on either Jeff Jarrett or Hangman Adam Page. We will see when that all takes place. But Bryan Danielson, I do believe that all the chips, as it were, are set. Where Danielson, I think, will win this tournament. And I'll tell you how we get there. I think Danielson wins this tournament, just how it is. So if he wins this tournament, he gets a world title shot at All In. And we'll get there. But I think, I don't know, we'll get there. Let's get to the AEW TNT title. Ladder match. El Phantasmo, Lio Rush, Dante Martin, Jack Perry, Mark Briscoe, and Konosuke Takeshita. This is a ladder match rules. And speaking of JR, hopefully he's doing well, resting. Apparently he had to have another emergency hospital visit. And hopefully he's getting better, resting, relaxing, healing. I don't believe he'll be on the Forbidden Door commentary team, but that might be better for him health-wise long-term. Hopefully we'll get to see him back on AEW programming sooner rather than later. But ladder match for the AEW TNT title. Seemingly this is Jack Perry's to lose. Don't know if the Young Bucks are going to assist him. Don't know how it's going to go down. But I absolutely think Jack Perry is going to walk out of Long Island the TNT champion to a chorus of boos for sure. But this will be nuts. Dante Martin coming back in a match where, a ladder match is where he broke his leg in that gruesome way. I believe it was almost a year ago. I'm not really sure when that took place. But my God, let's see, when was that? I want to make sure I get that. Oh, Super Card of Honor. Wow. So that was over a year ago. I believe like in April of 2023. So for him to be back in a ladder match now is pretty bold, pretty ballsy. But I think he's going to show up and show out in this match. Lio Rush is going to do some crazy stuff, I'm sure, as well. Mark Briscoe is crazy. Takeshita is a strong but athletic guy. El Phantasmo is a little bit of a wild card. But I don't know. I think Jack Perry's going to walk out here, for better or worse, as the TNT Champion. Let's get into it. AEW World Title. Will Ospreay challenges Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana. AEW World Title. So I've been referring to the Owen Hart tournament a bit. And I want to make sure I know the exact notes for when this takes place. Because Jeff Jarrett's match, I do believe, is coming up. I'm trying to see exactly when it actually is. Okay, so it is happening at Beach Break, July 3rd. This Owen Hart match between Jeff Jarrett and who really knows. But this is how I look at it. Let's say it's Hangman. If it's Hangman, I think we get Hangman and Danielson in the final. But here's how it plays. If Danielson wins the tournament, he gets a world title shot. So to me, I think Will Ospreay will end up winning this match. As a matter of fact, I'm going to book it right now. I've been trying to calculate how this could all go down. We have not seen Hangman for quite a long time. Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page, to some, are the Rock Austin of AEW. What better way for Swerve Strickland to lose his title than by Hangman Adam Page returning, causing some sort of ruckus, interference, what have you, distraction, where Will Ospreay gets the win. I believe he's on the ascension here. I think he's going to win this title. He becomes double champion. Bryan Danielson gets to the final, potentially against a Hangman Adam Page. Could Swerve Strickland cost Hangman in the final of that tournament, leading to Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay at Wembley Stadium, in addition to Swerve versus Hangman at Wembley Stadium, maybe in a cage, maybe in something crazy. But that's how I think this is going to go down. I don't know. It seems too obvious for Hangman to be there as the wild card, but if that happens after he potentially ruins Swerve's title reign, I mean, this happened just a few months ago. You know, he wins this title at Dynasty in April, and now he could be losing the title, albeit to arguably one of the best wrestlers, if not the best wrestler currently in the world, in Will Ospreay. But I think then the international title probably finds a way into another tournament, another ladder match, who knows. But if you set it up that way, because if Swerve wins this match, man, then maybe Hangman is the guy in the tournament. He wins the tournament, and it's Swerve versus Hangman. But I don't know how Will Ospreay is at Wembley not going for the world title. It would bother me quite a bit for that to be the case, because I think this is time for Will Ospreay to really have arguably the biggest moment of his career in front of 70,000 for the world title. So I'm saying it. I think Hangman interferes, costs Swerve. Ospreay wins the world title. Ospreay then goes on to eventually face would be Bryan Danielson, and we get a mega dream match at All In Wembley Stadium at the end of August. But then, of course, if Swerve then... If Hangman's in the tournament, the Owen Hart Cup, Swerve could, of course, then interfere, cost him the main final match there. That's something I can see as conceivable. I just have a tough time thinking Swerve Strickland wins this match. I know he's champion and it's only been 2 months, but to me, if you're going to lose it, this is the time. This is the guy to lose it to. It's not a blip or a blemish on Swerve Strickland's record outside of just a loss. I don't think it hurts his character at all. Will Ospreay, like I said, arguably the best wrestler in the world right now, and I don't think it would be detrimental at all to Swerve to lose to a guy like Will Ospreay, especially if that title opportunity with Bryan Danielson comes to fruition. I think that's the match a lot of people would love to see. So, and I want to make sure, because I'm actually not sure off the top of my head. But why couldn't we get? Because it did. So that was the thing I was looking for. What show? I could not recall, but it was at Dynasty where we saw the first Danielson-Ospreay match. And arguably that's the best match of the year thus far. Wrestling Observer gave it 6.5 stars. So why wouldn't, it's currently on Cage Match, it's the 12th highest rated match ever. And that's pretty nuts considering, I believe, the Takeshita match had to have been up there somewhere as I scroll aimlessly. Takeshita Ospreay already is actually 98th, so it's already in the top 100 of Cage Match matches at 5 3/4 stars. But why wouldn't you want to run that rematch at Wembley for the world title? You could even have Danielson win the title. I don't even think that would be a bad thing. Danielson winning the world title at Wembley off Will Ospreay. Final countdown. I mean, even if he doesn't, that could be Danielson's swan song match. I just think that it's too sweet, too set up, too perfectly aligned to happen. But again, the Hangman of it all really is the wild card. Could quite literally be the wild card into all of this. So, with all that said, Forbidden Door this Sunday live on pay-per-view. Yours truly will be purchasing this event, as I do pretty much every AEW show. I believe 2 shows last year I did not buy. I was at a town for Wrestle Dream, or I think I was at a concert for Wrestle Dream, and I was at another event during Full Gear, so I really missed out on those shows. But other than that, I buy pretty much every AEW pay-per-view because they've been so solid. I always get my money's worth every time I buy an AEW pay-per-view. I think I've bought in almost every show since its inception, outside of maybe 5 or less shows. So you can't call me a hater when I'm forking over my hard-earned money towards AEW. But I'll be critical if there's some criticism to be had there. But I'm looking forward to spending my money on this. I think the Swerve Ospreay match is a fascinating match to see where it goes. Cannot wait to see Okada and Tanahashi one-on-one after their legendary battles 10 years ago. Additionally, to see the ladder match, that is going to be something that it's probably going to piss a lot of people off if Jack Perry just finds a dirty way to win, but he's the scapegoat, he's the heel, he's a heel. So I think it sets up perfectly. And then, like I said, with this being done, you have the finals of the Owen Hart in the next couple of weeks. You've got Blood and Guts at the end of July, and then All In Wembley the end of August. So, and then 2 weeks after that, you got All Out. So a lot needs to start picking up the pace, beginning with this show. So I'm looking forward to it. Cannot wait. Tune in on Sunday night on pay-per-view. I will, of course, be live tweeting the show as I normally do most AEW TV when I watch Raw, SmackDown, any other PLE. I generally live tweet, so catch me on Twitter at JuicySteen and tweet at me there. Follow me on Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet. You can subscribe to me on YouTube at JuicySteen for this podcast every single Friday. When this show drops, the RSS feed will eventually upload to YouTube, and you can listen to it on there. I've been discussing this before. We're still in the process. It's not an easy process. We're currently going through getting some tweaks to what will be some video content, rather, on YouTube in the future. But we're working out the kinks on getting that all set up. Once that's set up, we'll get a test run that we'll absolutely begin getting some video content on the YouTube page. Looking forward to that because I've been finally getting some video content by way of being a guest. I was on Around the Mat, of course, with PJ North. I was on the Apron Bump with Kyle, which was fantastic. We talked November to Remember 96. And then the last couple of weeks, I've been on Final Bell Media with Drew, Corey, Blake, Ellis, discussing Who Killed WCW and potentially for some more stuff in the future. So video content, I'd like to start working the Juice Box into that realm. I used to do video content a long time ago, but as this show has only been audio to start, I'd like to work my way into video content going forward. We got a SIP series still in the works, getting ready to eventually record. We've had some snafus there, but I'm as patient as I'll be, so whenever it happens, it happens. And also, as I mentioned earlier, a couple weeks ago, we will be extending the Juice Box umbrella a little bit, and I'll have more details once those become finalized. We're really close to finalizing the particulars of that extra piece of business underneath the Juice Box umbrella. So I'm looking forward to bringing more content to everybody out there who enjoys pro wrestling and enjoys the Juice Box if you do. But of course, Juice Box on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podbean at juicysteen.podbean.com, YouTube, as I said, at JuicySteen, and on Spotify, search the Juice Box. And if you listen to it on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts via iTunes, drop a rating, write a review, takes a minute or two, and it would help the show grow. But I am Juice Springsteen. This has been the AEW Forbidden Door 2024 pay-per-view prediction show. Next week you will get at least one episode, definitely the Money in the Bank prediction show, ideally with Josh Eisenberg, and maybe another bonus show next Friday to celebrate a certain anniversary. So with all that being said, I am Juice Springsteen. Enjoy Forbidden Door, and I'll see you guys next week with another edition of the Juice Box. That was the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.